Welcome to Paradelphia Radio. This is Rick Pruitt once again on the Toxic Network, and I am here in the month of February 2021. We made it to February, month number 458 of the COVID crisis, or so it seems. And I am here with my trusty producer extraordinaire, Mr. Toxic Mike.
What's up? I hate the month of February because, and I tried to pronounce it correctly, because everybody always says it all awkward, and I always notice it's February or something like that. It just bothers me.
February.
It's a pet peeve of mine, and it just, the whole month is just shot, because every time somebody says the month, I want to strangle them.
So I'll be sure to mention the month every single chance I get.
I knew you were going to do that. As soon as I said it bothers me, that's what you're going to stick me with.
That's what I do. I poke sore spots. It's what I do.
It's like people that say wooder. Wooder. It's water. That's what we start off with. Pronunciations.
I need to get a list of these for you and just annoy the shit out of you. Thank
you. That's what friends are for. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Just make a list of anything that annoys the hell out of me and just continuously do it.
Absolutely.
Isn't that what your girlfriend's for, isn't it? Or your wife? I mean, sorry, wife. Oh my God, I'm gonna get killed. Anybody's girlfriend or wife is for.
Yeah, my girlfriend is my wife.
Your girlfriend is your wife now. Look,
yeah.
I'm still like I'm a teenager where everybody's just dating and girlfriend and boyfriend. I've never been married, so marriage is just foreign to me.
I could say luckily she doesn't listen to the show, because I always tease her that she doesn't listen to the show. However, last weekend she actually did listen to the interview I did with Steve Vertlieb last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So she made a point of sitting there and literally watching like a 45-minute interview saying, "This counts, right? You can't say I didn't watch. You didn't say I didn't watch your show anymore. This counts.
That's going to count for like the next 10 years.
Right.
For the next 10 years, I watched an episode. Don't tell me I don't watch. Right. I watch.
We got her one episode in. All right. So hopefully she's watching tonight, because I hope tonight's going to be a great show. I think it is. We have an awesome guest waiting in the wings here, so I want to bring her on and get her, on the show and start down the road of talking about Renee Watt. She is she's billed as a psychic to the stars, but she's so much more than that. I see all of your abilities and your what you offer to your clients, and it's everything from numerology to astrology to mediumship. I mean, it's a ton of stuff. So why don't you, I guess, kind of get into exactly what it is that you do and how it all started, because everybody has an origin story.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
so what's your origin story?
For me, it started when I was 10 years old. My oldest brother, his girlfriend at the time, had a tarot deck, and she showed it to me and she showed it to my sister. And I wanted one so bad. I saved my allowance, and a couple weeks later, I was in a new age shop. I bought my first tarot deck, and I brought that deck with me everywhere. At recess, I was giving readings to my classmates. At, sleepovers, I was doing the same. And not long after that, my mom took my siblings and I to a class on developing your psychic ability and intuition. And she had to get special permission for me to take it because I was so young and it was at a community college. And so we learned I was like 11, and I learned how to channel, how to tap into someone else's energy, how to create the space so that I could have a conversation with someone who had passed away. And again, sleepovers, I was all over it. I wanted anything that was witchy or psychic related. I was super into. And, I was 12, and I was at not a new age store, a used bookstore. And that's when I found, just by browsing, my first book on witchcraft. And by my 13th birthday, I was forming a coven. And so it was just always something that kind of landed into my lap that I just latched onto and couldn't get enough of.
Yeah.
So that's how the seed was planted anyway.
So what I'm hearing is something very interesting, is that did your mother or anybody in your family have these abilities prior to you showing these abilities or interests?
Yeah. So, my family is Catholic on my mother's side. And so my mom had visions, and she had, prophesized things when she was younger, maybe in elementary school or middle school. Mm-hmm. And she was going to Catholic school, and the other kids told her that she was talking to the devil. And so it freaked her out. And my grandmother, she would read playing cards, and she stopped because she was so accurate that she didn't know where it was coming from. She thought it was bad. There's this sort of, when we're looking at organized religions, in a lot of them, there's this sort of don't do divination rule because it's the devil's work. And so they kind of, poked at their gifts, and then when the gifts poked back, they were like, oh, no, like I can't do this. And so I feel that I'm lucky because I'm living in a more modern time, so I'm able to really explore my gifts and my abilities in ways that the other women in my family didn't necessarily have the opportunity to.
Right. And so that was my first question, because that's why I asked that, because it was very interesting that your mother just kind of immediately latched on and said, oh, let's get you involved in one of these classes, without any kind of it seemed like you said that without any kind of hesitation. So was she was not surprised that you were taking an interest in this and showing these abilities?
I don't think she was surprised. And I think that, because she took the class with me, and my siblings took the class as well. And I think that, I've never really asked what she thought about me showing gifts or showing an interest in it. We did have conflict arise when I got into witchcraft. That was too far.
A bridge too far.
It was a weird line that I wasn't really,
Right.
I didn't really understand, but
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. So again, you got into all these different aspects of it. Did this come to you like all at one time as a young child, or did you slowly build up your repertoire of all these different aspects of I don't want to say the paranormal, that's not really the right way to say it, but all these different gifts and interests? Did it kind of manifest all at once, or was this something that you learned along the way and one thing led to another?
I think that when it came to tarot, I was always pretty accurate. But I just don't know that I had the confidence to really believe I was psychic. Like, for me, it was just something I really liked doing. And so I did it, and it was exciting because a lot of the times I was right. But I had through my late teens and into my early 20s, I had an atheist phase where I wasn't, I worked with my tarot every once in a while, but I wasn't really engaged with it in the same way that I was when I was younger. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago, when I was getting a divorce, that as I was going through this divorce, I started to have a lot of vivid dreams almost every night. And so I began writing them down and realized that I was having prophetic dreams. And so then I kind of just started taking my studies more seriously and picked up kind of where I'd left off. So, got really back into witchcraft, got really back into my psychic ability, and started meditating every day and reading books and sort of just taking in as much information as I could to develop. Again, not thinking this was going to be my profession, just like this is what I needed when I was going through this sort of traumatic life experience.
Right.
And then I just, I added on astrology because it was just another thing that I could learn that interested me. And it was kind of, the way that I developed the idea that I could do this professionally was I was on a cross-country comedy tour that I just kind of threw together haphazardly. And this was shortly after my divorce, after my split with my husband. And I had a gig fall through, and I needed that money to get home. And so I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I drove down to New Orleans, and I read tarot cards in the French Quarter to make money to go home.
Oh, jeez.
And that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. I guess you had to be accurate to get home, I guess.
Yeah. I just set up a table and, hung out with the street poets and made the money I needed. And then it just sort of, I started making connections within the industry. I started promoting myself on Instagram and started my podcast, which has done a lot to grow just my ability to reach out to people. Right. And so that's sort of how I've made things grow since then.
Yeah. So when you started doing spirit communication, and we work with a psychic medium here a lot. She's part of our our crew on the show named Jean Durkin, and I've asked her this question a few times. And everybody that I talk to that has this ability, I like to hear the answer to this question. How does that manifest for you? In other words, is it something tactile that you feel, hear, see when you are talking to spirit?
Honestly, it varies. And a lot of the times, there have been times where I felt like I was getting full-blown sentences, but the way that language works with the other side, it doesn't feel the same as it does when I'm talking to you. It feels like thoughts are put into my head, and I know what to say because of what thoughts are being inserted into my mind, because I'm opening myself up to it. And so, I think that also a lot of the times, even if it's not just mediumship, if it's psychic ability, if I'm just like if I were channeling you, for instance, if I was having a lot of visual messages come through, to me, that's an indication that you actually might be clairvoyant. And if I'm having sort of like thoughts in my mind come through that's giving me the information, that might tell me that you're clairaudient. So I think a lot of the times it depends on the energy that I'm interacting with, and that will sort of dictate how I'm able to bring in the information and process it.
So that's interesting. So you can sort of work like almost like a test for other people. Like if I wanted to find out if I was either clairvoyant or clairaudient, I would try and send to you, and if that worked for you, that would be a trigger in your mind that maybe I was.
Yeah, I think it's, for me to pick up on your energy, the way that I read it usually is an indication of what your psychic abilities are. And I do offer readings where I will channel someone, and I'll look through, the different psychic senses. There's clairvoyance, which is your ability to have visions. Clairaudience is you hear things. There's clairolfaction, which is like you can smell things psychically. Mm-hmm. And so I'll sort of see if I'm channeling someone else, I'll try to see which of those senses feel more pronounced within myself, because I'm not within my own energy, I'm in someone else's. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm able to see a spike in certain psychic perspectives or psychic perceptions, it's usually because I'm picking up on that other person's ability.
Do those change over time or with any kind of outside influence? Like some days you're more clairaudient, some days you're more clairvoyant, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that within myself, I'm probably clairvoyant the most. And that's just because I see, even with my naked eye, I see orbs and little sparkles in the air and things like that every day. And I'm a very vivid dreamer, and my mind's eye is very strong and very clear. And so those are all signs that, you might be clairvoyant yourself. And if psychic ability comes with training as well, meditating almost every day. And so if you're someone who is sort of interested in what your own abilities can be, it's good to sort of look at what the different clairs are. And if you are a very vivid dreamer, you're probably clairvoyant. But if you have a very good sense of hearing, you might be clairaudient. If you notice that you get a very common thing for people who are clairaudient is that they get like the high-pitched frequencies a lot. They'll get the ringing in their ear, and that's usually an indication that a message is trying to come through. And so that, empathic is a big one too, being able to feel other people's emotions. And a lot of times, that can read as anxiety. Empaths will have anxiety a lot of the times that doesn't belong to them. And so if you feel like you're anxious throughout the day, but there's not a real logistical reason why you would be anxious, then that's when it's time to play with things like saying return to sender, or I release any energy that isn't mine, and seeing, okay, did my anxiety level lower when I did that? And that's how you can sort of learn how to separate your energy from other people's energy. And that's when you begin to pull at the thread of, your empathic.
Yeah. So without having someone like you on the other end of that circuit, let's say, like, for example, when you're talking just now, I'm thinking my wife, I tease her all the time that she has the hearing of a wolf. Like she could hear something happening 6 rooms away at the lowest level. And I always joke around with her about that. But what you're saying to me is that may be a sign of being clairaudient. So how would she test that if she wanted to, without having you on the other end to test it for her? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I think that there are other signs that you can look at as well. And so if she's a person who will have their phone on silent, but
All
think
the
they
time.
think they hear a text message and then look and see that they have a text message, even though their phone is on silent, that's a sign of being clairaudient. Or thinking you hear your phone ring and your phone isn't ringing, but the second you pick it up, it starts ringing.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, where there's like, you know, you'll hear a sound before it happens, or you'll be thinking something in your head and then the person in the same room with you says it right before you do. And so then it comes into other realms too, where there's like ability for telepathic connections, which is really common in romantic partnerships. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it where you guys are thinking the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in, like I mentioned at the top of the show, you're into a lot of different aspects, astrology, numerology, the mediumship. So are all of these different disciplines, is the information that you're getting from all of these disciplines basically all different channels to receive the same messages, or are you getting different messages depending on the discipline you're using to get the message? Do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm asking?
I mean, I think that the message would vary. I do think that there's a pretty big difference between reading someone's natal chart versus tapping into them psychically. And, you know, I do believe that psychic information comes through when I am reading a natal chart. But when I'm reading a natal chart, I'm looking at data. I'm looking at where the planets were in the moment that you were born and how the energy of the cosmos was pressed against you the moment that you become a living, breathing human person.
So not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but a natal chart, I'm not really familiar with that term. What is that? What is that exactly?
So a natal chart is basically you take the time, the place, and the date that you were born. Mm-hmm. And you can Google free natal chart and, you know, be able to pull up your information really easily. And so a natal chart is where all of the planets were when you were born. And when we're looking at natal charts, you know, I have one right here, actually. So this, you know, there are 12 houses in a natal chart, and each house is going to represent a different area or aspect of your life. So, for instance, your first house, it rules your sense of self and your identity in a lot of ways. But then your second house is going to be your security and your relationship to money. Third house is communication, and it goes through. It goes on. And then we've got, you know, the different planets that have archetypes as well. We have Mercury right here, which is the planet of communication. Mars is the planet of, it's very primal. It's aggression and sex. And so, then I look at the aspects, which are calculated by the degree at which the planet was in at a certain time. And so there's a lot of really complicated math.
I'm having flashbacks to like geometry and whatnot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, I look at all this data and then I come to a conclusion. Okay, so this person, their Mercury, which is the planet of communication, is having a harsh conversation with their Mars. It's called an aspect. And there are good aspects and there are bad aspects. So if I'm looking at someone whose Mercury is having a bad aspect to their Mars, they may have a temper. They may go to an aggressive place when it could just be a conversation. So they're easily triggered, perhaps. And that's sort of how I can look at where the information aligns to give almost like a blueprint of, the mannerisms and behavioral patterns of the person that I'm reading.
Interesting. And how do people use this information? Do they use it as a way to like make changes in their own personality or in the way they handle things, or is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone's different, and I can only give the information. I don't really have an authority on what they do with it. Right, but I think a lot of people are looking to understand themselves more, and they're wanting almost like a validation, and they're wanting to understand their connection to the universe. And natal charts are a really beautiful way to do that, because it's sort of like these are what the planets were doing when I was born, and this explains why I'm the way I am in a lot of ways. And there are progressed natal charts as well that will basically show basically show your evolution as you get older, because people do evolve and they do learn to grow out of the negative aspects of their charts, hopefully. And so it's just sort of, I think it helps people identify behavioral patterns, but it also depends on the way you're using astrology. Because if you wanted to ask a question about when the best time to release a book is, then you wouldn't look at a natal chart necessarily. You would look at a transit chart, which is when you look at someone's natal chart and you compare it to the charts that are happening right now, where the planets are right now, and sort of look at when you have lucky times based off of how the planets are moving around your natal chart.
Okay. So how much does belief play into this? In other words, if you were reading my tarot cards, let's say, and you came up with this reading for me, and I didn't believe a word of it, I thought this was, complete bull, and would that negate all or part of that reading? And the flip side is, if I was really into this and I was like, you are telling me you're going to tell me the God's honest truth, I believe all of it, would that affect it in a different way?
Yes. I mean, I think that when people come into a tarot reading and they're skeptical and so they're less open, that makes it harder for the reader to tap into, because everyone has psychic guards and psychic boundaries. And it's about letting those boundaries down so that you can have a very open communication with whoever is reading for you. And, there could be instances where someone wants to trick a psychic and wants to go feed the psychic false information. And it's like, that's just a waste of money, because the psychic is picking up on what you're projecting. We're reading your energy. And if you're projecting a lie, we're going to pick up on the lie, and we might not pick up on it as you're lying to me, but we might this is the information that you're projecting at me, that you're showing at me. So this is how I'm reading it. And a lot of the times those sort of readings won't make sense because the projection is not authentic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So going into a reading, whichever kind of reading you're getting, at least with an open mind to say, I'm willing to listen, at least, would be the best way to go to get the most accurate information.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. One thing that you do that I've never in my life understood is numerology. Is there any kind of tangible way, scientific way to look at that and say numbers added up from your whether it was your birth date or however that's done? And you can tell me how that's done, because I really don't know. But however that's done, is there some tangible way to say, this equates to real life events and here is how? Or is it all just belief and faith?
I mean, I think that when we're looking at the movement of numerology, there are ways that you can tie it to, this makes sense, this lines up. It can be a little bit more vague in terms of divination, unless you're actually rolling dice. And that's when, you can ask a question and roll dice, and then we'll have either numbers that deal with conflict, or we'll have numbers that, tell a different story. But if we're looking at just sort of like the numerology of a person, you've got your life path number, which is when you take the month, the day, and the year that someone was born, and you add all of those numbers up, and then you take, the numbers then you add those numbers up. Basically, you do reduction addition.
Get down to a single number, yeah.
Yeah, so that you can sort of add the numbers down to a single number. And if you wanted to see what kind of year you were going to have, instead of using your birth year, you would use the month you were born, the day you were born, and the current year. And that sort of presents you with the energy of what's happening this year and, what you're sort of dealing with and working with.
Interesting. Yeah, it's one thing I've not had done, and I've always been kind of interested, because it's it's very personalized, because it is set in stone as far as your birthday is your birthday and so forth. I didn't know you could do it in real time, where you could roll dice and was it like you ask questions and roll dice and the number kind of reflects your answer? Is that how that works?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I had not heard that.
I can calculate your life path number really quick.
Oh, sure. Why not? January 28, 71.
I think this will take. Okay, so you're a life path number 2. So it makes sense that you actually would be in a position to where you're interviewing people, because 2 is the number of conversation. It's not just one people, it's not just one thought process. There's 2. And so it's a number that's really good for having conversations. It's a number that's really good for dealing with conflict, sort of doing damage control when there's issues happening within the family. So there's a little bit of it. You're like the diplomat of numerology. So
that's actually pretty accurate. It's actually pretty accurate. Yeah. Yeah. I've always liked communication, and I'm always the person when chaos is going on, I just say, how do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know anything else. Just how do we fix it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, I can't argue with that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So as far as the people that you've your clients, is there a certain demographic that works better or is more accurate? And what I mean is men versus women, older people versus younger people, maybe even different locations physically, like East Coast, West Coast, or different countries. Is there some kind of a demographic that works better or is more conducive to accurate readings or less accurate readings?
I really don't think so. I think that I haven't noticed any sort of pattern, especially when it comes to age or gender. I think what really matters is that the person wants a reading and they want a good reading, and so they're open. And usually people are, because you're paying $100 for an hour of someone's time. That's my rate. And so I don't have a lot of people like coming in with I don't know if this is a real thing or not. Usually the people I read for are on board, and then it's nice because we can just sort of get into it and get to work and see what's coming through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're paying the money, you figure you're going to at least have some kind of a belief system going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know if there was some kind of if that mattered at all, if there was, like you say, gender or age or any of that mattered at all. So a reading is a reading no matter what, because I guess you're reading the person's soul versus their physical body or location.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is that sometimes when I'm looking at people who are maybe middle-aged, just sometimes they're a little bit more stuck in their ways, and so it's harder to point out maybe like what patterns could be worked on.
Right.
But for the most part, I have really receptive clients, and I have people who want to evolve and be better. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
So what do you prefer to do? What is your favorite form of discipline? I keep calling it disciplines. I'm not sure what the exact term is, but what is your favorite form of reading?
Honestly, it's always pretty fluid. I love coaching people on their psychic abilities. I love doing that because it's just, it confirms things for people that they didn't necessarily even like know was happening with them. It confirms their intuition, but it also teaches them how to strengthen it. And a lot of the times the observations I make, people wouldn't necessarily think that it's an indication that they have a psychic ability. So like I said, if you have ringing in the ears or popping in the ears, that's a sign of being clairaudient. And people don't usually know that that's a sign of that. And then I'll give them a specialized meditation to sort of help, strengthen that ability and control it more. And especially if you're a highly psychic person and you're not aware of what the signs are and what the symptoms are of that, it can lead to insomnia and light sensitivity and migraines and anxiety and depression. And so it's really nice when people can sort of, and I know that depression and anxiety are real outside of psychic ability, but I think it's really helpful for people to be like, oh, okay. So this is how this specific type of meditation can help me put up my psychic boundaries and can help me put up my psychic defense so that I don't have to feel everyone's crap all the time. Yeah. And I really love giving people the tools that they need to empower themselves and sort of, find their groove psychically and intuitively.
Yeah, one of our listeners just had had a good question pop up here. I think it was Casey or Cassie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but she's asking if you can read your own tarot. Can you do that, or do you need someone else to read it for you?
You can, and I am sort of, I don't read for myself often. I feel like I am sort of kind of always talking to the universe and talking to, the people that I deal with on the other side. People call them spirit guides. And so I don't often feel the need to read a tarot card because I'm just always having those conversations. But I think, especially if you're learning, I think it's great to read for yourself. Where you have to be careful is if you're beginning to obsess over a scenario or a situation or a love interest. That's when it's time to, maybe put the cards down and decide if you're having even a healthy relationship with the cards or not.
Right. So do you feel like this is karmic for you in doing this kind of work? Is this helping your karma by helping others? You look at it that way?
I hope it's helping my karma. I mean, I think that, I assume that there's some sort of karma tied to this. And I think that everyone's life, every path that every single person is on is tied to their karma and what lessons that they needed to learn in this lifetime. Because, a lot of our karma is stuff that we brought through in past lives. And so the karma that we're working with now in this present life, yeah, we want to score points and we want to, we want to sort of like climb the soul tree, but it's also like, well, what do I need to learn? And how, what path am I going to choose to help learn that?
Right. So you mentioned past lives, and it's always been a very interesting topic for me. We've talked about it a lot over the years on this show. My wife and I actually had past life regressions done a few years ago.
Oh, you did?
We did. And it was interesting. But it's one of those things where when we were doing it, as much as it was interesting, I always had this in the back of my mind thought that I was maybe creating a story. Because, it wasn't exactly what I expected. I had never been, I wasn't really hypnotized. It wasn't being hypnotized, but it was sort of like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess I imagined it differently, but the reality was I was just sitting on laying on a couch very calmly, and I had thoughts going through my head and these scenes playing out in my head. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to do that and not think, well, geez, am I just making up a story because I'm here and I want to have a past life pop up, so therefore I created this? Or was that real? So
right.
How do you differentiate that?
Honestly, when it comes to past lives, you'll never know. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think that what it comes down to is if something, especially because you're saying it wasn't what I was expecting. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I'd never been hypnotized. And like I said, it wasn't really being hypnotized, but I guess I imagined something along the lines of me not consciously. Like, I guess what I kind of imagined was me speaking and then somebody later telling me what I said because I don't remember.
Yeah.
Which I guess would be more along the lines of hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to past life regression stuff, you kind of just take it with a grain of salt. And I think for me, it's more valuable to look at the work that you should be doing right now and what makes you the happiest and what makes you the most efficient and, helps you towards your goals. I think that that's kind of more where I try to take my psychic readings. I think past lives are fun and they're great. And there's, definitely a time and a place for it, but it's just not necessarily my specialty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is the term past lives a misnomer? Do you think that because I've heard theories where people are in this belief system where we're living parallel lives, where everything is happening. There's no linear timeline. Everything is happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if that's like, what do you think about that? And if that's the case, how would you kind of look at past lives? I'm going to say past lives in that, so you know what I'm talking about, but how would you look at that?
Okay, so I'm having a couple thoughts already. When it comes to all time happening at once and things like that, I've actually channeled haunting situations, ghost situations, where it wasn't a person who died, it was the times had overlapped. And so the person that was the client that thought there was a ghost in their house, there was just a little bit of both time happening at once. And I think that she was psychically able to tap into.
They were seeing themselves?
No, they weren't seeing themselves. They were seeing like someone else who lived in their.
Oh, okay.
different time.
Okay.
But from what I could pick up on as well, like that person was also able to pick up on my client. And so there was this weird dynamic where like she was also the ghost to someone else.
Right.
And so I definitely think that, you know, the all time happening at once thing is a really interesting theory that I wouldn't step away from, or I wouldn't say isn't true. But, you know, I think that there's also like, that opens up a lot of questions around the multiverse. And if there are different versions of yourselves, and
right,
there's a lot to play with there.
Yeah, because again, you know, if you follow that rabbit hole, I mean, every single choice everybody makes, you're talking about God knows what the number, billions and trillions and quadrillions of you know, universes being created every second.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So how about folklore? How does that play in? How do things like you know, fairies and leprechauns and Bigfoot and all these stories that people tell of these creatures, does that fit into your belief system?
I don't do a lot of fairy work, but I definitely believe that people have fairy experiences, and I purposefully try to keep fae out of my space and out of my beliefs, because they mess with people and they steal your stuff and they move stuff around. So like I purposely try to set a boundary between me and the fae, but I super believe in ET and aliens.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Is that based on an experience or just a belief that you have?
It is based on an experience. Would you like to hear about it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I actually did not believe in ET in the sense that the paranormal community does. You know, for a long time, I just believed, well, of course, that there's other life on other planets. The universe is huge, but I didn't think they were among us. Mm-hmm. And I had this experience when I was dancing at a nightclub. I was a stripper, and I was at work one night, and I was having really intense deja vu to the point where like it was almost like I was lucid, like I was having a lucid dream. Like it was just crazy, like how much everything lined up with a dream that I had. Mm-hmm. And there was this customer who came into the club, and I kind of felt just like a strange energy coming off them. And I got this idea while I was giving him a dance, I said telepathically with my mind, I said, I think you might be an alien. If you are, like, how about you give me a wink? And he went, and like made a weird face and winked at me. And I was like, is this happening? And it wasn't enough to freak out. That like could have been a coincidence. So I, was still talking to him a little bit, and I got called on stage, and I did my stage set. And at the end of the stage set, I looked at him with intent, and with my mind only, I said to him, I'm going to go use the restroom. If you got that, raise your right hand. And he just kind of goes, and then to the music, he like did a fist pump, and it was his right hand. And I was like, okay. So I went in the bathroom, and at that point I'm kind of freaking out, because that was like, it looked like he gave me a look like he had heard me, and then he followed the command. Mm-hmm. And so I went back out, I collected myself. I went back out and I sat next to him, and he turns to me, and the first thing he says is, you're not like other people, are you? You operate on a higher frequency. And I was just like, who even says that to anyone?
In a strip club, of all things.
Yeah, in a strip club. And so I excused myself, and I went to the dressing room, because it kind of felt like a lot, Right. And I said to, the ET collective, I said, I'm really tired. I was trying to make the money to buy the equipment to start my podcast. I said, I'm really tired. I want to buy this microphone tomorrow, and I need $100, and then I can go home. So like, please give me $100. And I got called onto the stage straight from the dressing room. I called onto the stage, and I did my set, and the guy tipped me $100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the first experience, and the most, wow.
That is, I mean, I've heard there's no coincidences, so there's got to be something to that.
It was just like too many times in a row that
Right.
I asked him to do
Right.
something with my mind and then he did it.
So is it possible that you were putting the suggestion in his head?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that angle as well. Like, was I doing mind control or something?
Right. Right.
I wish I could mind control people to give me 100 all the time.
Give it a shot, maybe you can.
Maybe I can.
So that's interesting. So you also do animal communication, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what role because my wife and I have done rescue, and we have animals all over the house. We have for years, and we've lost a few over the years. And we always think of, consider them to still be here with us.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, is that usually the case, that they stick by their owner and their people? And if so, what is the purpose of that from their point of view?
I mean, I think that they definitely do stick around. And I think that it's, a lot of it is the same reason that our grandparents stick around. They want to comfort us. They want to be near us. They miss us as much as we miss them. I think that, there are, as a witch, I believe in a witch's familiar, and that is an animal who sort of amplifies your magic that comes into your life and sort of brings magic into your life, brings more psychic energy into your life. And when you have cases like that, I think that it might be the same soul of an animal coming back over and over and over again. So if you feel like this animal reminds me of this other animal I used to have, like there might be a thread connecting them.
Are they healers, animals, whether in real life or in spirit?
Both. Totally 100%. I mean, you don't even need to be a psychic to see the healing properties of animals. I mean, science has contributed low blood pressure and stress levels being lower to owning a dog. People who have dogs live longer because their hearts are healthier, because they have this little innocent, furry, magical thing,
right,
creating comic relief throughout the day that's taking you out of your shit so that you can play and be and connect with something that's innocent throughout the day. And I think that's really helpful for people.
They just seem to be very, very intuitive, as far as whether it's if you're mentally having a bad day or physically you don't feel well. I know that I years ago I broke my foot, and I came home and I laid on the couch, and my dog at the time, my little Cocker Spaniel, she always laid up near if I was laying down, she would lay on my face and my chest and whatever. But this particular day, she literally went down and laid on the cast right over top of the spot that I broke.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was just really interesting, because she never, ever did that.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, there's been situations that have happened over the years that are very similar to that, but that's just one that kind of sticks out of my mind. And I just, it's almost like they have this instinct to go to the place that hurts. And I didn't know whether it was something where they were literally like channeling energy, healing energy into that spot, or they were trying to, or whatever,
Yeah, no, I think that that's definitely a possibility, especially if that's sort of like the thoughts that you're coming up with, like maybe that's what they were doing. I think that your intuition is probably telling you what that story was. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they're super intuitive. There will be times where I have a little dog, her name's Voodoo, and I will see orbs. I see little orbs and things in my space all the time. And there have been times where I've been looking at something and she was looking at it too. And, I would see her eyes follow the movement of, the energy that's in our space. And sometimes she'll go after it. And I'm just like, all right, well, she's
they're like the canary in the coal mine. I watch the animals and whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it's true. It's totally true.
Yeah. So is there any type of situation that you would not get into as far as a client, whether and I don't mean like physically, like doing something dumb, like going into an unsafe place, but I mean just something that maybe if you had a client sit down for a reading and you got some real bad vibe off that client, would you back off of that and not go forward with that?
I've never had that happen. So, I mean, I like to think that if my intuition was telling me like, don't read for this person, that I would just listen to it. I have a little bit of a dangerous curiosity. So sometimes I will go against my intuition when it's telling me not to do something, like just to see what's going to happen. So I don't, I just don't know I don't know what scenario that would be because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I just didn't, I mean, you kind of put yourself out there when you're doing readings, that you're opening yourself up. And I just didn't know if opening yourself up in a wrong situation would be detrimental to you, and there'd be some point where you wouldn't cross that bridge. You know what I'm saying? There'd be something that would happen, or a feeling you would get where you would preserve yourself over doing a reading for someone else.
Yeah. And I feel that when I'm giving readings, a lot of the times I'm not necessarily bonding with the energy. I'm allowing myself to experience the other person's energy, but then I'm just analyzing it. And I don't necessarily feel like our energies are necessarily mixing.
Okay.
But I also, whenever I'm done with the reading, I do a little bit of a cleansing breath work to try and push out anything that I've picked up. And I haven't really had issues where I've not been able to cut cords with a client. I think that it's more difficult when you have an actual connection with someone outside of reading. That's when you have to be careful who you're getting involved with, because that's when you are opening up, and that's when you are allowing your energies to mesh, because you're forming a bond and you're forming a connection. So for me, it's not really a question of if it's dangerous or not in a reading. I think that, psychics and empaths have to be really careful about who they connect with just within their personal lives, because, especially if we have a person who, I'm sure you've met people who were very charismatic when you very first met them, and then it turned out that they were terrible.
Right.
And so, there's this sort of like, you get lured in with the charisma, and then you are sort of psychically, emotionally connected to a person who turned out not to be so great. And then you can feel them directing negative energy at you after you've set the boundary and decided to step away from that connection. And so that, I think, is way more difficult to deal with. And that's when you got to do banishings and all that crap.
Yeah, well, then, and that speaks to my next question: is if you feel yourself in that situation, I mean, aside from literally, physically, logistically moving away from that person, is there something you can do to prevent that energy transfer?
Yeah, I think that a good thing to do, to prevent the energy transfer, get rid of it.
Get rid of it, stop it. I mean, I'm not sure how you would word that, but
yeah. So once you've set the boundary and you've stepped away from a relationship or connection that's not working, it could be romantic or friendship or career oriented. I think that, a thing that you need to do is do a house cleansing. Go throughout your house room to room. I don't really recommend sage. I usually will use like juniper, cedar. Go in a counterclockwise direction. Say I'm banishing negativity from my space. Burn a black candle while you do it, and then go again through the house the same way but clockwise, while lighting a pink or a white candle and saying, I'm bringing in good energy only. Sprinkle a little bit of brick dust across your doorways. I actually have a house cleansing kit on my website that sort of tells exactly how to do that. And I think that's like step one. Step two is to get like a black candle, carve their name into it, and essentially perform a banishing, where you will light the candle saying like, I banish this person's energy from my life, from my home, from my space. And you might have to do a couple. If you were really emotionally connected to someone, if this was your best friend, or if this was your partner on a romantic level for a long time, you might have to banish them for a year to get rid of them, because that energy sort of will creep back in. And then there's also cord cutting meditations that you can do. So there's a lot of different options on how you can sort of move away from it.
Right. And Mike has the your website pulled up here on our video show. Obviously, if you're on the audio end, you can't see this, but what I do want to do here is we're getting toward the end of the hour here. So I want to thank you, Renee, for coming on with us. Yeah. And I do want to give you a chance. I know we didn't even touch on your podcast. And I know you do a second streamcast with Sal Santoro, who we talked to a few months ago. Real nice guy.
Sal actually was instrumental in getting me started with my psychic journey, just because when I moved to LA, I'd been here for about a month when I walked into the Crooked Path, and he looked me up and down and said, "Hey, do you read? Yeah. You want a job? Yeah." So that's sort of like how our introduction came in. So yeah, now we have a live stream every Wednesday. It's called Betwixt the Shadows, and we take live questions from the audience. And if you can send in your questions in advance, we'll look at them as well. But people ask us their questions about witchcraft and their questions about psychic ability, and sometimes I'll do like tarot readings on air as well. And then outside of that, I have a podcast called The Glittercast. And that's my latest baby. That's my new project. And I've been really, really lucky with some of the guests. I got to interview Cassandra Peterson, who plays Elvira, and she, had a haunted house. And so I got to talk to her about that. And I talked to Dita Von Teese about past lives and psychedelic mushrooms. So I've been really, really lucky with the people I've gotten to talk to. And it's been a really cool experience. And I'm just excited to watch it grow. I used to have another podcast called Witch Doctorate, but that I'm sort of moving that project over to the Glittercast, just because it's a little bit of a rebrand. yeah,
and I can vouch for the Glittercast. Before I was telling you before we went on air tonight, I listened to a few of the episodes earlier this week, and it's really interesting. You touch on a lot of different aspects of many different like I keep using the word disciplines, but I don't know what else to call them, of your work, and it really is it's interesting information that you come up with there.
Thank you. It's good networking too, because then I get to connect with a bunch of different people in the same realm. So it's been a really fun project.
Absolutely. So as far as your website or anything else, you could let anybody know how to get in touch with you if they wanted to have a reading or anything of that nature.
Yeah. So my website, rainbowglitterstar.com. You can find out about the different types of readings that I offer, but I also have a bunch of different spell kits on there, a DIY witch jar to attract a soulmate, a house cleansing kit, a car protection kit. So there's a lot of fun witchy things. If you're into crystals, there's 2 different crystal kits that you can sort of learn about different things that you can do with the crystals. And my Instagram is at Rainbow Glitter Star for most of my stuff. And then I also have daily horoscopes and the podcast at The Glittercast and at Betwixt the Shadows for me and Sal.
Very cool. Well, Renee, again, thank you very much for giving us your time here tonight. I'd love to. We could talk for hours about this stuff. You do so much, and like I said earlier, we can't touch on any one thing and ignore all the rest. I wanted to kind of get a wide-ranging discussion going on today, but I'd love to have you back on and talk more about your projects.
I would love that. That'd be great.
All right, thank you very much. And again, Renee Watt, we'll definitely post all of your links on our show notes and get everybody over to you, and hopefully they'll get some readings, and maybe we can have some testimonials from our own listeners here for next time you come on.
Yes, that'd be great. Yes.
All right, have a good night. Thank you very much again.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. All right. Renee Watt, what do you think, Mike? You gonna get a reading?
Wait, am I on? Okay, I'm on. I just had to check. You know me. I just hit buttons and stuff. No, it was really, really cool. Interesting stories. I love the whole idea of tarot card, even though I'm known as Skeptic Mike. I always loved the tarot cards and the reading and everything.
Yeah. Have you ever had a reading done?
I've never had a legit reading done. I grew up with, and it was mostly females who got into that kind of stuff in school and stuff, and they'd sit there with them and learning and everything. And I always was intrigued by what they meant and what was going on. It was always interesting, but I never ever actually got one done. It's one of those many things that we talk about all the time, that Mike's got to get this done because he's Skeptic Mike. Just like with Gene Durkin and everything. But I would totally get a tarot reading done. That'd be really cool.
There you go. Well, just hit Renee up, and I got we can have you on as one of our testimonials.
I will be a testimonial. I'm going to be your guinea pig for a lot of stuff. All right.
So, it's funny when she was talking about the dreams regarding the UFOs. I'm thinking about you with your.
Oh, I know. As soon as she started talking about dreams and very lucid dreams, it truthfully is mind-boggling to me that not everybody in the world has such vivid, lucid dreams that you wake up and you remember so many things about it, and it was like it was real. Yeah. And like I've been talking to so many people that don't remember their dreams, And I'm like, man, if I'm skeptic Mike, and I have some kind of like ability because of that, it's gonna blow my mind. But
Do you
no,
always remember dreams?
I almost every morning waking up remember something about my dreams, and it's always like, it's always crazy, it's always weird. It's me going back to my old job, or the alien dreams. Right. Or something weird, something interesting, going back to my old house. It's always something, but it's always so vivid. It's always so real to me that it's just like, it's awkward how real it is to me in my dream.
I've had those. They're rare for me. They're not as common for me. Taryn has them a lot. Taryn could tell you, like, she'll wake up and she'll have a dream that's literally like a plot of a soap opera.
Yeah.
She'll have characters, she'll have locations, she'll have storylines. And I'm like, how in the hell do you remember all this?
Oh yeah, I'll wake up and I could literally be a blogger for you. And on your website, just every morning blogging the crazy, insane dreams that I am having.
That's not a bad idea.
I knew I was going to say it. Next thing you know, idea. I've got another thing on my plate. This is my new
Mike's
gig.
blog.
and you just reap the benefits of everything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That'd be interesting reading.
What time are we at? You know who we have in the waiting room. I'm looking at her right now. She is smiling at me. She's now laughing. Nobody else can see this, not even the viewers of the video podcast, not even just the audio podcast. Right. But she's there. She's a new mama.
Yeah. So
should we bring her on, or should we just leave her down there?
Well, it would be funny if we left her there. We're gonna just leave her there and wrap up.
She looks like a brand new mama. Look at that look. Oh, that is haggard.
She wanted to pop in here at the end of the show and show off her new Bambino.
True story. I didn't forget, but I forgot in the moment, and I was pumping my boobs. So I was like, shoot, I got to put these titties away.
If I had a nickel for every time that happened to me.
I've walked in the rooms where girls are like, I got to put them away now. I was like, Ma, just keep going.
Mom, just keep going.
Well, this is the man.
Oh my God!
Wow!
Look at him.
Sleeping right
He's a baby old man.
He's got my hairline.
Remember, I said I want to give birth to an old man, and that's what he is.
He's got an old soul. Look at him. He's an old man.
He's got an old man's hairline.
Look at him.
Yeah, he's got a lot. He's got a mullet. He's got a lot of.
He's got a mullet.
A lot of hair in the back, not a lot in the front. It's
So it's party in the back. Corporate
business in the front. That's it. But he's
you gotta give him a fanny pack.
Oh my gosh.
Zubaz.
His penny loafers don't fit him just yet. But I've been putting him in a lot of suspenders, a lot of bib overalls, so he's ready.
All right.
Look,
he's not ready for prime time right now, though.
No, you know what? One of his favorite things. Wow, I look a mess. Whatever. One of his favorite things to do, though, is he constantly has his middle finger up, literally, all the time. I'm not kidding you.
Did you teach him?
I did. I didn't. You should know better than that.
Fresh out of the womb. Just
no,
like
you won't say the word, but I'm sure this is all appropriate.
Right.
No, I don't.
Flipping the bird for you, free game. I won't say the word. But this is just a finger. Whatever you think it means.
I do not. Contrary, but he just a couple minutes ago had his little middle finger up.
I bet he did. I bet
he's
he did. You'll be getting plenty of that.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, yeah. When he's like 16 and he hates me because I don't let him go to his girlfriend's house.
I got to say congratulations, but the Paradelphia community wants to know, needs to know, is on the edge of their seat to know, have you drank alcohol?
I did.
I knew it.
You didn't?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Saturday, I literally felt like a bad mom for an hour because I listen. So for those of you that have been following Paradelphia for at least a couple of years, I had gastric sleeve June of 2019. I stopped drinking any type of alcohol March of 2019. Because you basically, when you have sleeve surgery, they tell you don't drink alcohol for at least a year because they don't want you to trade your addiction for food to an addiction for alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
To be an alcoholic.
It seems like an even trade.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
So I kept to that like really strongly because I was addicted to food. So I had no alcohol, no Bahama breezes, no nothing, no shots, nothing. I did have a little bit of wine here and there during quarantine, but it wasn't like anything. So my plan was to go all out, and I was ready to go to Woody's in Philly. I was ready to have to crawl home June of 2020. Good old effing Corona wants to shut all the bars down. But that was okay because I found out I was pregnant May of 2020. So that I couldn't drink anything. So this little guy came on the 14th, and I said to my husband, I was
5
like,
minutes later.
he was out, and I was like, where's the alcohol? He was, but I said to my husband, I said, would I be a bad mom if I went out to dinner with one of my friends, Dudley, who's my party friend? He's the one I go to the clubs with all the time. Mm-hmm. And I said, if we just went to the Village pub in Swedesboro and got some alcohol, and my friend Brittany, who's actually here today, right now with me, we went there, and I had, what did I have, Brittany? A Malibu Bay Breeze. And then I got something else that tasted like cough syrup, and I had them send it back. But I literally
She was doing Jaeger.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
That's what I was thinking.
It was nasty, but I had them send it back, and they brought me another Malibu Bay Breeze. I couldn't finish it. So I did. So my friend Brittany did.
Lightweight.
Yeah, but
that's awesome.
Hoping to get another drink in here soon. I'm hoping to. I mean, I have nothing else to do. I sit in the house all day, pretty much alone,
living the
There's
life.
no excuse. There's no excuse.
Living the dream.
No excuse. Living the dream, but he was worth it.
Yep.
So
you a little COVID baby.
He's a good strapping boy.
Have we said what his name is? I know you probably post online. I'm saying on for the show.
No, I'm sorry. Noah.
Noah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Noah, and he has two middle names, Francis Jack, for my husband's grandfather and my grandfather.
Oh,
very cool.
If he has to fill that full name out every time while filling out paperwork, he's gonna have a good time.
Hate you when he fills out paperwork.
I know. Well, I was
Mom, God damn it!
I was filling out paperwork for him, and it says, it says middle initial, and I'm like, crap. So, but it's okay because his initial, if you think about it, his name will be Noah F.J. Keene. So it's kind of sounds like a president. So I'm hoping that
it would have been funny if the second name was like Ulysses and it could have been Noah F.U. Keene.
He would have loved me.
Yes, we're all still adult children.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for stopping by, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm hopefully, soon enough I'll be back in studio, but maybe when he's can fend for himself a little bit and I don't have to have my boobs on a pump every half hour.
You go put your boobs back on a pump, pull that cord, get the engine revving, and start pumping. Is that how it works?
It's funny because every morning we get up and I sing to him and he like smiles. He hasn't laughed yet, but I go, pump the titties, pump the titties. So when he goes to kindergarten, he's probably gonna be singing that song, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of phone calls. That's
the name of this episode now. Pump the titties.
Pump the titties.
Renee is now bumped as the name of the episode. It's now Pump the Titties.
So you got him giving the middle finger and singing a dirty song, and he's not even 3 years old yet.
I know. He's doomed, but he's going to fit in perfect at the Toxic Radio Studios, I think, with all those attributes.
Especially when he finds out what hasn't been released yet, the knowledge that has been put out.
Can't wait.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. I love secrets.
See, you get to be in on this one.
I do. I do.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, and tell Noah when he wakes up we said hello.
I will tell him Uncle Rick and Uncle Mike said hello. We call you Aunt Mike. How about that?
Aunt
I don't
Mike.
care. I'm gonna be a bad influence and give him his first beer
Next
We're
week.
16.
Next week.
next week.
Yeah.
Just I'll spike the pump juice.
That'll be
Spike the
nice.
boob.
Stupid.
Oh my God.
See you guys.
All right, take it
Bye.
easy.
Oh my God, that was worth its weight in gold. That little part. I mean, the best end to amazing interview, a great show, no technical difficulties, and boob pumping. That was amazing.
You got it all in one show.
That's it. I mean, what more can you ask for?
We fit it all into just over an hour. Entertainment, baby.
There you go.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up here. But again, I want to thank Renee Watt for coming on, and we will definitely have all of her links on our show notes. So if you guys wanted to reach out to her and get a reading, any form of reading, because she does, like she was talking about in the interview, she does numerology, she does tarot readings, she does mediumistic readings, among other things. So, and she has her website there, so you can go onto her website and find out all the cool stuff she does. All right. So for Mike and for Jennabee and little Noah, I am Rick. This has been Paradelphia, and we are out of here.